Have you ever tried inlay die cutting? Well, today I have two different cards to share with you, one with a nice simple technique, and on the second one we're going to step it up a notch and try our luck with multiple inlay die cutting. Let's see how we go. Hello and welcome to another Take Two with Therese at Altenew, and I've got two beautiful cards to share with you, and inlay die cutting is what we're going to be doing today using this mini flower cluster layering die set. Now I'm not going to be using the leaves from this set, but I am going to be using these flowers, and they do have 4 layers to them. So I thought rather than bulk up a card with too many layers, I would show you a fun way to sort of level out the playing field so that the postage doesn't become enormous. Now I'm using the Red Sunset group of papers here, and I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with the base of the flower. Initially I was going to go with the chocolate brownie colour, but I changed my mind, and you'll see what I end up doing in just a minute. But I did layer up a few clusters of flowers, and I did mix up the colours a little bit. All of the colours that I'm using today will be listed at the blog, and that will be linked in the description below, as well as a full list of all the products that I've used here today as well. I just used a liquid glue to assemble my flower little bouquets. They're really easy to do because basically each layer cuts all at once, except for the very top layer, which has a few little pieces. And this liquid glue just dries really quickly, but I can sort of move it a little bit. And the instructions for the layers are on the packaging. I did come in with the detail blending brush and added some sort of pinky pearl colour to the edges of the flower, and also splattered my flowers with some ink spray as well, some pure white. Now I wanted something to layer up here, and I've got the mix and match frames die set, and I'm going to be using this on both of my cards in the backgrounds, and this is what we're going to be inlaying on the first card. So I didn't have any cardstock the exact colour that I wanted, so I thought I'd create my own, and I blended out a couple of different families of colours on just a piece of Nina 80-pound cardstock, and I also blended out some greens as well to cut some leaves. And like I said, these aren't from that set, they're from the Just Leaves die set. And this is what I decided to do behind the flower on the first card, was use some of the Dazzling Diamond. And on the second card I decided just to use some of my leftover frame that I die cut my mix and match frame from, the outside portion that I was going to throw away. And I thought this is just going to make both cards sort of be a little bit more similar with the same colour families. And it looks pretty, it's a pretty colour. Okay, so the first card, inlay die cutting. This is easy to do. I simply got a piece of A2 cardstock cut to the same size as my card front, and die cut the mix and match frame from that. Now I'm keeping all of my pieces here because I want to attach the frame and the inside border directly to my card front. So I have added some dotted adhesive, and then I can just puzzle piece in my frame, and this is where it all gets a bit weird. For some reason I thought it would be a really good idea to re-inlay all of the little stripy bits. I won't make you sit through it all. But I think it was worth it. You could certainly have left this out. You didn't need to do it. It's just something that I felt like doing, and can you believe I only lost one piece in the process? So I did have to die cut one corner to finish it off completely. Now I did pop up my flower cluster, as well as added one of the leaves to the front of the card, and I added a really simple sentiment. It's stamped just with some obsidian black ink from Beauty Within. You could certainly recreate this card and not pop up the flower cluster or the sentiment. I do like some dimension, but I didn't want it to be as dimensiony. Okay, so now we're going to step it up a notch and we're going to be doing multiple inlay die cutting. This is really easy to do. You just have to think about which images you want where. So basically, I've laid out how I want the front panel to be. It's another mix and match frame. And this particular leaf is at the back. So that's the one I'm going to die cut first. So this is actually all going to end up very flat on this frame. So I can simply just hold that in place with some low-tack tape and run it through my die cutting machine. Now what I've got here is a piece of copy paper, and I'm adding some of the dotted glue tape to that. Now the reason I'm using copy paper is it's nice and thin because I'm going to have quite a few layers as I keep running this through my die cutting machine. And by sitting that behind my die cut leaf window, that meant that it had somewhere for me to adhere my leaf to. And again, you want to make sure that you keep all those little tiny pieces so that you can re-inlay them onto your image so that it ends up nice and flush. I did the same with the other leaf. This was another image that was in the background. These are sort of sitting behind my clusters of flowers. And I'm adding another piece of copy paper. I only cut it to the size that I need, and then I can just add the die cut leaf into the inlay die cut and make sure that I add all the little tiny pieces. So you could try this technique with whatever dies that you have. This would work even with a stamped and coloured flower that you had a coordinating die with as well. It's not hard to do. I laid my mini clusters where I wanted them and just held the outline die over top, ran it through my machine yet again, and I'm just doing the same technique here. But in fact, this was easier to do because I've already done all my layering and joined my cluster together. You could actually do it the other way around and add just your base layer of flowers and then build it up after if you wanted to do it that way. And then for my last cluster, I did exactly the same thing. I simply held the image in place where I wanted it to be, adhered the actual die, and then run it through my machine. I did make sure to add my low-tack tape in the center of the die cuts. I didn't want to end up with any marks or impressions on the outside of the dies, or on that, on that panel where you could see it. I added a simple sentiment, and this one's from the Modern Hello stamp set, and I just heat embossed that on some black cardstock. I do hope you're inspired to try some inlay die cutting and maybe take it up a notch and do some multiple inlay die cutting. Till next time, bye.